Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella came in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because you know there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.
Hello everybody, and welcome to a little bit of an impromptu Tuesday. I actually rang Gemma about 15-20 minutes ago and said that I'll do a live stream for an hour, or less or more. We'll see how it goes, shall we? Give us some questions in capital letters, please, if you will, because there's absolutely nothing planned here. And I did say, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'll do odd ones. I planned on doing them early hours at morning, but that's my best time to get through little bits of what I call work. So hope you guys are okay. It's not even midweek yet, is it? Tuesday, but I hope you've all had a good day and a good week so far. And I'm amazed because we've only just planned it. We've got 65 people in here. So thanks for support, guys. See, Chrissy Phillips is in. Kingdale Clark, let's have a look. Gemma's in. Al Hooker is in. And always good to see you, Al. You're one of my, honestly, loads and loads of love for you, mate. Absolutely. Gemma's in. Sparkles, good to see you. Carl Dan. Stan Smith, let's have a look, Martin Tierney, and NC. I missed it because it flew up then. And let's have a look. 40 and 23, good to see you, mate. Good to see everybody. Wendy Jones. And just hit me with a few questions. Let's just sort of kick a few ideas about, and let's just see where this Tuesday sort of ends up. Good, I hope. It's not going to be too bad. But there's no real rhyme or reason why I did one tonight. We had a little Nigel Logan in. Good to see you. And Armory. And I'm going to have to stop this because I keep looking at them names. We had a little bit of a result last night. And I hadn't even had a chance to ring Ian to tell him I'm doing it live. Or Pete, which I should have done, really. Went up there. Usual time. We'll call it the research area. When you're up there, I don't know whether you're researching, you're observing, you're hoping to come into contact with something, aren't you? Let's face it. And I think it would have been about 9:45 or thereabouts, between 9:45 and 9:50. And there's 4 of us. There's 4 of us there. We've got 3 fixed cameras set up. One of them's on us, but it's not set far. We know now it weren't set far enough back. And it was Ian. He saw on the cliff face behind us, probably about, I don't know, 80 meters away, a white light, just literally switch on, switch off. I never saw it. Nobody else did, but we've no reason to disbelieve any member at team, really, because we're not in the habit of making things up. And we've gone weeks and weeks without seeing anything significant like that. But what were interesting, and he'll not, I see Blue Shift Rob's in. Good to see you, Blue. What were interesting were it unnerved him. And if you know Ian, and I've got to know him quite well over years, he don't really get unnerved. He don't get frightened. And then what words he used, and he's not here now, but I can say it with confidence that he wouldn't mind me saying that, because that's how it made him feel. And in life, face to face with anybody in chat or you and me, he's quite confident, or very confident. So what imparted that kind of feeling on Ian, I don't know. And we've all, hold on a minute, we've all to one degree or another experienced similar things. So I got to thinking, hold on a minute, we've got a question there. So I will lob that up, because I want to talk about what I've called the MFA areas. So it's Gillian. Thank you, Gillian. Hello, Paul. Have you ever been scanned to see if you have any unknown implants? No. and I don't think I have, to be honest, Gillian, but any more than you guys, perhaps. But it is interesting because I did a conference a few years ago with Daryl Sims. You might have watched him on TV and things, the Daryl Sims alien hunter, and he's heavily into implant retrieval, surgically retrieved implants. So Daryl would have been the man to talk to about that. But no, I haven't. And I don't want to miss any of these questions. I wanted to talk about the MFA, the multi-phenomena areas, but I'll just do these because otherwise... So Rob can finally come out of hiding. Well, you're here, mate. You're in a good place, and it's always good to see you. Right, very interesting, particularly so sorry about the implants. I can't really say that I have ever been scanned or anything, or got any knowledge that might suggest there's something like that. I mean, what are your views, guys, on alien implants? And let's throw the word alien out and not think about something from outer space. Let's just use it. It's alien to everything we know and understand. Let's use it in those terms. And many people claim to have had alien implants in their body. I worked with someone years ago. I won't say his name, and he weren't really involved in the subject of unexplained phenomena, but he always had a lot of nasal problems. And he went and had some x-rays, and they found a little, which they never retrieved, they left a little silver, or metallic, should I say, not silver, metallic ball, sort of like there. And he'd seen the x-rays and everything, and he were adamant that's what it was. And I'm not talking so much size of a pea, it could have been the size of a grain of sand, I don't know, but little metallic ball, it was circular. So that were interesting. So, right, 1423, very interesting, particularly in light of the observation on the phases of the moon. You're being in the middle of the waning gibbous moon. Interesting. Yeah, well spotted there, Fortium, because I only looked at the phases of the moon when I were looking into various things, other things as well, unexplained related. So I'd not looked at the phase of the moon for last night's sighting, but a lot of the sightings were taking place on a waning gibbous. And so, yeah, this guy's brilliant. Footage and analysing footage, 40, and so it's like it when he sends me bits and bats. Unfortunately, I've got that many things flying about in my head. I don't always give them the attention they deserve, because he found some stuff. Fortium found some anomalies in the Night People film that we put on YouTube. I don't know, probably when it was snowing 4 or 5 weeks ago. And he found some really interesting anomalies. So, Fortium, we've got to work on that, because you have found something interesting that I never saw at the time. Anyway, it's about other people as well. So, but it's almost like I'm talking to Fortium. Right. Let's have a look at this. Any recent Dogman reports in Caton, Lebbeston, Gristhorpe or Staxton? No, but I'm sure there's people out there with these reports, and I don't care if they're historic. Because if they're new to all our ears, then they're worth listening to. And what a thing to be asking, Fred, any new Dogman reports? And I'm not having a pop at you. Give me a head a shake every time I talk about this subject with the cryptids and think, am I really talking about this? And then I just have to say, yeah, I am, because the people that are coming forward are absolutely, for the most part, 100% genuine, bona fide people. There's somebody in chat I spoke to, I said that you had a name shout to earlier, who was probably one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. And I know how what he saw affected him. So no reports. I got a historic report from Gristhorpe. Somebody sent me from the 1700s of a huge flaming fireball, which could have been something meteorological. I realised that, but that were interesting, and that were only the other week. But there's that much stuff. I see Chris Max in. Good to see you, Chris. Let's have a look. So, and thanks for moderating, Gemma. John Hunsley. Let's have a look here. And remember, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, nobody's going to remove you from this chat. I wouldn't have thought Gemma would, or if Lee were in, or Alison, nobody would remove you. You're allowed to disagree. That's what it's all about. It's when you become abusive. Nobody's here for that, are they? So that's when it's time to say goodbye. So no, Red Fred, I haven't had any recent ones, but I'm glad you've brought it up, mate, because it's strange, isn't it? Something like this is mentioned, and then ding, you get an email or a phone call. So yeah, you might have just lit the touch paper there, mate. Thank you. Let's have a look. Chris Mack, what we got here, Chris? Was the light Ian saw in the Cove, Paul? No, we moved, Chris, and where the old viewing area used to be, we actually went there. And when I speak to you, you know, on the phone, I'll tell you where we're going to meet up next time. So, but it weren't as intense as what you saw, and we all saw, all 7 of us that night when we say it visited us. But it were a bright light. I'm speaking for you, and I didn't see it, but I saw how it affected him. He didn't like it. It really upset him and rattled him. And we thought we'd got one at cameras trained on us, and we had. But what Ian saw was about 80 yards away, and these cameras don't have a wide field of view, so we're going to have to set them even further back. But no, it weren't in the Cove, mate. No, let's just. I wanted to get to this multi-phenomena area, but I'm not doing that. You surprised me, people. I really am amazed that we've got a little bit of interest when we've not really advertised it. Paul, what, in your opinion, is most convincing UFO alien footage you have seen? Do we know it's alien? That's the first thing I'd say. Alien, because we've got to get away from the term. We don't mind using the word alien. I don't, but I don't want people to think when we say alien that we're necessarily meaning something from outer space. Do you know what I'm saying, Dale? Because I'm not certain that we are dealing with that. I went to a conference probably 6 or 7 years ago, and there was somebody with some footage there of what he said was an alien being, and he showed it to a few people, and I've never seen it on internet. I've never seen it since, and it was moving, and the background looked pretty static. It could have been some kind of CGI. It was about 6 or 7 years ago. It could have been some kind of computer generated, I don't know, trickery, for want of a better word. But he weren't keen on showing it many people. I were lucky enough to see it, and it looked like iron filings as it were moving. It were really strange. Well, that the most convincing? I don't know. I mean, we've got some convincing footage, haven't we? There's the sphere that Ian filmed, which I think is as convincing as anything. I was with a guy called Dave Barnes, and on the cliff tops, and Dave and myself, I didn't see it come out of Filey Bay, but it was Dave that alerted me to it, walking along the cliff tops, looking towards Filey, which is 6 miles away, and he saw an object come out of the water. He said, "Hey, Paul, something's just come out of the water. I got a camera on it, which is a Sony NX80. It stayed level with Filey Brig when we caught it on film. And this film's out there, by the way, so it's not something where, you're just talking about it and it's not there. It's out there. We put it out. And then it travelled the full 6 miles. Dave calculated speed. It was something like 225 miles an hour in the time that it took to travel the 6 miles, and then turned and appeared to come in towards us. That could have just been coincidence, but it went back down into water. That were quite impressive. But, one man's proof, let's face it, everybody. So one man, one woman's proof is another person's rubbish, isn't it? I really don't like photographs where I'm having to search for something in the photograph. Does that make sense? People send me pictures of things. You've heard me talk about it before, and I'm having to scratch my head because if I really want to, pareidolia, I could see a face in anything. Anybody couldn't they? And I find that sort of hard. I find it hard because when you say you can't see anything, people fall out with you because they want you to see something that bad, and you can't always do that, can you? So, but as best footage, and we've got quite a lot of footage, but convincing of what? Do you know what I mean? Proof of anything in this subject, be it UFO, alien, cryptid, spiritualism, anything, whatever you want to talk about, any genre of the unexplained, has basically been denied out of existence by academia. Let's face it, it has, hasn't it? It is for the most part denied out of existence. So it's difficult. We need a framework, and I talked when we were looking at this, talking about this orb that Ian saw last night, and I'm thinking it's the areas. It's the multi-phenomena areas, at the MFA, it's the areas that need the detailed study and the cross-referencing, but then you've got other locations around the world where they don't share the information. Nobody's saying if you're investing thousands and in some instances millions of pounds, you should be sharing all of the information. But if some organization, some group of people know that there's another area, multi-phenomena area, somewhere else in the world, then they should be at least trying to cross-reference that information, even if they want people to sign disclaimers so that they're not going to put that information out. Not because of nobody else should listen to it, but we, for the most part, we put out what we find and what we experience. But first of all, we've got to acknowledge that something's real. You guys in chat do, for the most part, unless you've just come here for a laugh. And if you have, just sit quiet and enjoy yourselves, pour yourself a drink. But for the most part, we've got to establish that it's real, and by that I mean science academia has to acknowledge that there is a reality, and we're not all having psychotic episodes, and we're not all misidentifying everything that we see in the sky. And if that could be done, then you could sort of concentrate on the MFA, the multi-phenomena areas, and use them as, make a template. And so it's something real at the moment, but it's untouchable, and it's so far advanced of science, regardless of whether science sees it and experiences it. It's so far advanced that it appears like magic, and it literally appears and disappears like magic as well. And like I'm just reiterating, you can't work with something whose existence is denied, because if and that's not always the case. And am I rambling here? I'm sorry if I am, but that's not always the case, because now there are physicists, there are scientists, there are people actively becoming engrossed in the subject. That was probably the case many years ago, but nobody sort of dare put their head above parapet and admit it. So first of all, we've got to accept it's real by, not you guys, science, academia. They've got to accept the reality of this subject. Then we have to build a framework with which to hold it in, hold it into these areas, the MFA areas, or if you could have a particularly active place at home, it's still an area. It's a multi-phenomena area. And, and by framework, I mean prime locations have to be established. And you guys might not even be interested in what's buzzing in my head at the moment, so I do apologize. You see, I think the secret to the phenomena's 100% success rate is that all of the things that happen appear to be detached from one another. And I don't know whether that's by design or whether just by pure coincidence, but because you've got so many genres of the research, and everybody I just do UFOs and I just do cryptids. Never the two will meet. So it keeps the knowledge, bits of knowledge that you might be able to glean from one of the other genres of the phenomena, you're missing, because you don't want to delve into that part of it, because it's not your sphere of knowledge and it's not your interest. But I'm afraid if you want to look into the subject of unexplained phenomena, you've got to look at it as though it's multi-phenomena research. And then so everything within the MFA, the multi-phenomena area, could be studied and considered as much as part of a much bigger picture. You see, what a human, me, you guys, what you might consider important, the unknown other, the alien, for want of a better word, I think it's of no consequence. What we want from these other intelligences, let's first of all, what do I want? What do you guys want? I mean, I don't want to expose it, but I'd love to offer more proof of what I'm talking about. And it's difficult. Some people just want to experience it. When I used to go up onto the walls with Steve Ashbridge, he'd not take a camera, he'd take binoculars, or just, obviously, your most important tools, your eyes, and he'd just want to experience it. That were enough for Steve. I think if I'm talking about this subject, then I have to offer you guys some kind of proof. When somebody writes to me with a report, I don't alter report, but I always put it over in the best way possible. If I've spoken to these people or met them face to face and think that they're sincere, then I want to put them over in the best possible light, because you don't want them to be laughed at. You don't want them to be disbelieved. But let's just briefly touch on these MFA areas. The repeat areas show up time and time again. Some, like we just said, not all is in some remote place. Sometimes it could be a property. Look at the haunted type properties where people book and then they go to these houses, or old castles and places where there's alleged hauntings. These are repeat areas. Probably due to commercialism, you're not going to get people researching there. You get investigative teams going, but I don't know. But unless there's a group of people all interested in cryptids, interested in UFOs, unless we can come together and agree that there's a commonality, a thread running through it all, we're never ever going to be able to connect the dots. I guess that's what I'm saying. So I mean, we might never do anyway. I mean, what am I? I'm a 63. Gemma would tell you, I think I am. So I'm never going to be able to connect dots. There's been far greater brains than mine trying to do it for many, many years, and they've sort of, they're pushing up daisies. So I don't think I'm going to do it, but it don't matter. If I could just advance it one little degree or point people in direction, then that's good enough for me. That's sort of, well, how should I say it? My work on this planet is over. Right, let's have a look at, let's have a look. Hello, Paul. Always loved your woodland stories with you and Chris. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? All the strange phenomena that goes on up and down North Yorkshire and all the woodlands. Do you think there could be portals? Andrew, I don't know. Once again, Andrew, all we're dealing with are words, a name for something. Is it a doorway? Is it a thin area? There's definitely something happening. And do you know, one of the best things I wouldn't say decided or came up with, it weren't by design. Well, when I actually realized that I had to stop thinking, how do these things traverse the vast distances of space? I'm not talking about the cryptids. How is it possible? And God, yes, science is right. Every time they just stamp on us, it's impossible. They can't possibly travel here. And soon as I just literally in my own mind started saying, they're already here. Don't know how they're getting here, or whether it's, and we'll use the analogy of, can't think of his name. It's Paul. It'll come to me. But Paul, we've had him on live stream, who said it's almost like the grooves of a record, and he believes there's parallel existences. Sort of just like, or I would say, like we're on Radio 1 and there's another existence on Radio 2, but you don't know it's there unless there's some kind of slight change in atmospherics, or that you just tweak the dial a bit and suddenly you're in the room. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe as Fortean said earlier, when with the waning gibbous moon, why are we getting strange things happening on a waning gibbous? I don't know. But they're all things that if you've got a collection of minds collectively, we might be able to move forward a little bit. But portals, I don't know what they are. When me and Chris, you're on about Chris Wright here, when we were going to Woodland, and he's a really good friend. He's a friend of Aloe's in chat as well. And we know there's something there. We know there's something in those woodlands. I know that when we made Wolflands, and we spent nights in those woodlands, and some of the nights I spent with some of the witnesses, and it weren't there. Whatever it was, or the feeling that it projected on the nights that the witnesses had their experiences, it wasn't there. I mean, even the witnesses said that, it felt normal. It felt there was no edge. But for some reason, when these things are here, not on every instance, but a lot of times, you get a feeling for something's about to happen. It's almost like there's a latency, there's an energy in the air, and I don't know what that is. Do you think that that's the phenomena, sort of placing a bubble of strangeness around us? People turn around and they'll say, forgive me if I'm rambling here, guys, because I've nobody to fire back at me, so I'm just throwing it out as it comes into my head. People will say, like, suddenly I was walking along seashore and everything went silent. And I'll use Gaz Gray as an example. Gaz, great guy, helped us with Wolflands, as in told us his strange account that he had up on Scalby Mills, which is a few miles and you'd be heading into the Forge Valley, where the lads in Broxer had their experience. So it's all close. But he's on the edge of the North Sea, as it's Scalby Mills. He's an hard-working man, a family man. On this night, he'd got a bit of time. He took a few sandwiches and a flask, and he walked from Scarborough up towards Scalby Mills, and he were going to observe the sky. Maybe Northern Lights. I think that's what it was. And he said he sat there in the darkness, totally unpolluted, no light. And I think you've got Jackson's Bay at the other side of it. So it's quite a deep bay where fishermen go. There's some experiences there. He said, and all of a sudden, he became aware that the sea, the sounds of the sea, everything had just stopped. Everything was just dead silent. Now, there's something else at play. We know that. But what I'm meaning is the phenomena, in my opinion, does not have the ability to stop the sea. Come on, it's not King Canute, is it? It's not got the ability to stop the North Sea. Yet whatever impressed upon Gaz just totally killed his senses. It heightened his senses in one way, the fear element, because he said he heard some breaking of branches in the distance, quite heavy branches, and then he heard footfall. And he said it was something coming towards him. He said with the influence of a bull, the weight of a bull charging towards him. He says, and I dropped into the fetal position just as it was about to stamp on me. That's how close he thought it was. And everything just snapped back to normal. So that it's almost like the phenomena's playing with him. But the fear he felt for those, let's just say it was 30 seconds, 10 seconds, we don't know. But the fear he felt and the influence that intelligence, is it intelligence, that phenomena placed upon him was incredible. But portals, did that come through a portal? Is it a thin area within the world? And when these things, you see, I'm talking and I'm no scientist, am I? So please forgive me if you are, and then if you've got the answers, please come on here and tell us. But what I'm saying is there's some kind of overlap, and there's something changing the atmospherics in a lot of people's experiences and encounters, because there it is, one of the things that needs discussing in the multi-phenomena areas or anywhere. The actual change in air pressure, the change in temperature, the lower silence. There's, there's that's what I call it. It's a lower silence. It's strange. You're aware. Kate, who told us about the 1998 UFO at Reeton, which incidentally is only about 12 miles. Yeah, 12 miles from Scalby Mills, where Gaz was. But I think Gaz is 2019 maybe. But 1998, and she's in a little chalet bungalow on the top of the cliffs at Reeton. And if you go onto the Truth Proof channel, you maybe have already seen it and this lady talking about it. But there's so many telltale signs. She'd fell asleep in the bungalow and said she woke up because of the silence. How does that work? The silence woke me up. Have you ever heard that before? I haven't. It's amazing, isn't it? And then she sees this thing that's so low, it looks like it's going to take the roof off the bungalow next door. And she believed it were like a plane, as they're slowly going up. And so potentially, if Kate's telling truth, and why shouldn't she be telling truth? What's she got to gain from this? This thing's been in the fields at the back, probably on the ground or very close, because it was rising as she were privileged to see it. So it's fascinating. But I know that we've done all that, Andrew, from could there be portals? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to start talking in, oh, yes, I think there's a portal and I think these beings are interdimensional, because I don't even think science and the great minds of science understand what's happening fully. So to expect somebody who's knocked nails in wood for most of his life, I never like doing that either. Yeah, it's not going to happen, mate. But let's have a look. Let's just get rid of that one. Rock Guns N' Roses, sorry. thoughts on Area 51? I don't know, mate. I really don't know. I'm looking at that little dog there, though, and if our Gemma looks at that thumbnail, it looks like Stella, your old Staffy. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, the location exists, doesn't it? Whether they've got the alleged spacecraft, recovered spacecraft. What do you think, guys? When they talk about these areas and other areas in the world and elite units collecting recovered spacecraft, they're almost like, to me, let's assume that they do have these items. They're almost like Trojan horses. If I'm trying to think in the mind of some other intelligence, and I can't, but if they're so capable and these craft, these machines are so advanced, yet they're crashing, that's interesting in itself. And so if they're crashing and being retrieved, are those crash retrievals, is that deliberate? And are they being placed in these absolutely ultra top secret facilities for other reasons, but reasons that only the unknown others know? I really don't know. What are my thoughts on Area 51? Yeah, Area 51, perhaps everything that people say, but like Chinese whispers, things grow out of control, don't they? But maybe a lot of the things that people say and talk about are real, are genuine. And I know I don't read many books, and I did read one many years ago called Travels in Dreamland, written by Bob Lazar, and that were interesting. That were interesting. And what I tell you, what I found interesting, no matter regardless of what you think about Bob Lazar, a lot of the things he said back then that nobody would believe are actually coming to fruition, and some of the things that he spoke about have proved to be real. So I don't know what that tells you. Well, it does. It tells you that he had some knowledge on what he was talking about. Thanks for that question. Right. Hi, Paul and everyone. Gren Steele, Phil Turner. Let's have a look. Red Fred, we've done you, mate. You'd give us a Chris Explore. Right, let's have a look. Hold on. Let's have a look. Do you have any paranormal experiences at home these days? We did this on Sunday. We did a few of these, Fred. And there are things happening, nothing like on the scale that it used to happen. But I think you guys in chat, you'll all know this. You'll know this as well as I know it. And unless, like we said before, unless you've just come in just to observe and grin, for the most part, you'll be in here because you're interested in something, because you've had an experience of your own. But there are periods in people's lives, and a lot of people in chat will know this, there are periods in people's lives where it becomes very active. And it's only when the activity stops that you realize you should have really been documenting it a lot more and setting up surveillance. But for some reason, it's like when you look at the experiment, with an eye to capturing it, it seems to stop. It knows. It's like meditation, isn't it? Which I'm not very good at. But, if you can let your mind go blank and allow these other things, these other influences to come through, it's brilliant. But as soon as you start analysing them, they dissipate. But I know that you didn't ask about that, Fred, but that's how these things go with me. I usually end up running off on a different thread. But experiences these days, not as prolific, but it will. I know it will pick up. I know that's the way things are. And the same for everybody. All you guys in chat, you will have periods in your life where things become quite active and then it just goes flat. Periods in the areas where where you go walking or where you set cameras up and you really probably we want it too bad. I don't know. And nothing happens. I don't know. Let's have a look. Half an hour gone here, guys, and let's just do this. Glad I found your channel. Chris Explore. Thanks, Chris. Remember seeing you years ago on Rich Planet TV. Have you seen much more in that area on the UFO front? Great question, Chris, because I did that with Richard D. Hall. I don't know what year that was, mate. It were a long time since, weren't it? It's got to have been because I had a van at that time. Gosh, it's a long. I bet that's going back like 11 to 12 years, if not more. So anyway, we basically, for those that don't know, I was spending years and years literally on the East Yorkshire Wolds. sometimes in North Yorkshire, but mostly East Yorkshire. And it were a farmer that alerted me. I were interested in the UFO subject. Obviously, I had the website 2002/4 ILF UFO, Intelligent Light Forms. Remember where you heard that name first? Because lots of people like to call them the ILFs. Well, it started here. But anyway, enough of me. Let me just do this one. So a farmer contacted me from up at Staxton, up around the Staxton area, which is near the old RAF base, RAF Staxton Wold. And he told me that he was observing unusual lights from the windows, obviously, of his home, front and back, his back windows. There were a long strip of pine trees, and then the old RAF, saying the old RAF base because it's oldest operational RAF base, as in radar base in the world, but it's still operational. It'd be a satellite station for Fylingdales. But the RAF base was behind this row of pine trees. But he was seeing lights, orange lights primarily above the base, sometimes in the trees. And you would also seeing them looking towards Cottam and Sledmere, which would have been about probably 7 miles away. Somebody do that if you want. I could be wrong, but I think it's about that far. And he'd got cameras set up on moving cams every bit of day, just filming. And he's analysing footage. He retired. And then it interested him. It really interested him. So he alerted me to it because he'd contacted Rich Planet TV with this footage. And I still maintain that this man has got more footage. When we say UFOs, I don't mean spacecraft or what people would see like a flying saucer with little windows and things, spheres of light and strange anomalous lights. More footage than anybody I know, probably more footage than anybody in the world. Them cameras were going, I don't know if they still are, 24/7. They weren't collecting stuff 24/7. Let's face it. But let's imagine that you had one significant sighting a month and you'd done it for 10 years. You know, you're doing well. But he'd got more than that. So anyway, Richard came through, and I already knew this man, but he'd contacted him, and he decided he didn't want to do the interview. So I was in Danes Dyke, myself, my wife Mary, and our Staffy that we had at the time, little dog. And I got a phone call from this man. Will I step in? Will I do an interview for him? So I did. I ran through. So Chris, Explorer. it's funny how that's worded. Chris Explorer. To answer your question, that were totally off the cuff. There was nothing planned. I literally drove through from Danes Dyke, met Richard, and did the interview and sent him some footage that myself and Chris and Steve Ashbridge had been filming. Well, I were filming it. Steve never used to take cameras. And that's it, really. I don't know if it's still out there on internet even. It's a long time since, isn't it? But yeah, the area, then you asked, is the area still active? I believe now that the area is becoming active again. I got contacted about 3 weeks ago by a police officer who I know quite well, who lives in the area, and he'd seen an orange sphere of light travelling along the top of a hedge. And I don't mean mistaking it for a farm vehicle or a car at the other side. It's open fields. There's nothing there. It's in the night. Football-sized sphere of light. I got another report, and I can't think who it's from, so forgive me if you're watching this. And they gave me Paul Daw, who's been on the live stream, and a great guy, Paul. And him and his good friend Ray. So if you're watching this, Paul and Ray, thanks for letting me know about this. They'd been up to North Yorkshire. I think they'd been to Wycombe Forest, and Paul teaches bushcraft and other things. He's not in a habit of seeing loads of unusual phenomena. In fact, he said when he saw this was the first thing he'd seen in years of that nature. Goes up to Speeton, all over the place, camps out all over. So they decided to drive back, and I'd drive back via Staxton, maybe Foxholes, I don't know, and then through Cottam and Sledmere, which is all of the areas where myself and Steve used to frequent, probably 2004 to about 2009. And this is the area as well where I got the report of the football-sized orange sphere about 3 weeks ago. He says, and then when they got towards a place called Fridaythorpe, if any of you guys know where Fridaythorpe is, there's a bikers cafe there. It's a cafe, but there's always a lot of bikes there. So if you don't, just Google these locations. And he said, suddenly in the night sky, quite low down, a huge globe of orange lit up like a sun, like a miniature sun. And they watched it for a few seconds and then they just imploded on itself. That's what we used to see lots and lots of. Incidentally, when I put the talk together for Ian at the Awakening, his lecture, and I included footage, and I got a picture of that area, and then I put orange lights in, as in reconstruction, to depict what Ian had seen, because he'd actually seen orange lights close to the Friday Thorpe at Bikers Cafe as well. That's before I knew him, by the way. So once again, a window area, an area of, a multi-phenomena area of places that need a bit of close observation. So we may, I don't mean we're abandoning Bempton and Speeton Cliffs, but we may spend time in that area as well. I know when I injured my back last year, I spent, because I really were in a bad way. I couldn't walk very far. So we were driving to Stakston and spending time there. And it was at the time when all the drones, so it'll been not last year, it'll been sort of back end of 23, beginning of 24, when all the drones were sort of popular within the news and airports were getting shut down because of the alleged drone sightings. So, we may end up that way again. So thanks for that question. Daryl Sims, infection, no entry point, odd. So that I'm just looking at what Blueshed. Then let's have a look. I don't want to miss your questions, but I'll probably not get to all of these. But we'll see. Paul, you may be interested in having Peter. I've had Peter on, Peter McHugh on. He's written a book about paranormal forests in England. He talked about your books on Paranormal Monkey podcast. Did he really? Yeah, he's a lovely guy. So that's Dr. Peter McHugh, isn't it? And he wrote about the paranormal roads as well of England. So an interesting man. So yeah, maybe I ought to have a catch up with Peter. I'm not sure if he's been on twice. I know he's been on once. So yeah, interesting guy. So yeah, definitely. And Stephen, if you do speak to Peter McHugh at all, tell him I mentioned it, because he's really interesting. You might not speak to him, you might have just read the book, but that's fine. Need sleep. Yeah. Do you think the former RAF base has any link to things that happen at Bempton? And I suppose you're talking about RAF Bempton here, and I don't know. A lot of people place importance or attach some importance on strange happenings, and it's RAF Bentwaters, the Rendlesham Forest incident, but things I would have thought have been happening I've looked through the archives. I've gone back decades and decades through the old archives, the old microfilm archives of the newspapers, and looked through physical old papers from the 1800s. Things were happening in these areas before the RAF base. I don't know whether the inclusion of the RAF base enhanced it. I really don't know. And I'm not going to say, I think it is, just to add a little bit more mystery, because I really don't know. Somebody sent me a report of something from the base. I'm not going to be able to basically group of people that went down there after it had been closed, because it closed in it said 68, but I think there were still people there in 1970. Came in 1940, I believe. RAF Bempton, that is. It's interesting. We'll just give you a little bit of a quick potted history of RAF Bempton. It came to Flamborough, first of all. And we'll say 1940 because I think I'm right. So RAF Bempton as it is today, the RAF came to Flamborough in 1940, and near the lighthouse, and they set up, or they decided to set up their radar base there. At the time, it were all pretty low key, but that's where they were going to set it up. They discovered fairly quickly, within that same year, that the elevation weren't high enough. So within the year, they moved to Bempton. And that's where it's obviously been ever since. I think it closed in 1968, like I said, still open in 1970. And it's a type 1 rotor, so below ground you've got this well, I say complex. It's not huge, but you've got all these underground rooms and bunkers. I believe that the walls were 10 foot thick, the ceiling, the roof, supposed to be 12 foot thick. It was designed to take the impact of a 1,000-pound free fall bomb from a Russian Bear aircraft or a near miss nuclear blast. So pretty substantial. I find it fascinating when they say a near miss nuclear blast when it's about 100 yards from sheer cliffs, because you'd think if they dropped a bomb, then cliffs are going to drop into the sea and that's going to go with it. But I don't think anybody thought about that at the time. You know, they were just, that's just the nature and the structure of it. And there were a bungalow built over the top so that any planes that were spying and looking at our coastline, they would think that just a bungalow built on, you know, on the top of the cliffs. So it's interesting. And a fascinating place. And I always need to add that it's totally out of bounds. There's livestock on it. So anybody climbing fences are out. You don't want to be letting cattle or whatever livestock, I think it's cattle up there, out onto cliff tops where in some places there's no fences and you've got between 200 and 400 foot cliffs. So yeah, just basically keep away, stay right side of the path. That's what I'd do. What else? Let's just have a think about it. Yeah, many strange things reported in and around that area. You can't get in it now. It's sealed over. There's no point. Anybody who's got any designs thinking they're going to get in underground, forget it. You're not doing it. It's not happening. And what you got to gain, really, it's full of asbestos. But in the days, the 1970s through to either the very early 1990s or the late 1880s, it were active. Allegedly, intermittently, it were used by a satanic cult. There is evidence of graffiti on the walls that are slightly satanic. There's lots of strange things down there, and there's some lads went in a few years ago, and they sent me a recording, and because they'd heard voices inside the bunker itself, and when I lifted the sound, there were a voice, and it said, "Fool is man." Some people have interpreted as saying foolish man, but you can clearly see these guys on the film, and it's been put out. You know, I put it out there. I did a conference once and talked about it, and they're going, "I've just heard voices," and you can see them, you know, with the phone footage, and somebody's whispering, and when you lift it up, there's something that goes, "Fool is man." But what that means, I don't know. But it sounds old-fashioned kind of thing to say, doesn't it? And as they're walking up the field, once again, they shouldn't have been there. But I can do nothing about that, can I? So yeah, we jumped all over the place there. Do I think the RAF base has links to strange things that happen? Maybe we create the strange things. You know, 5953. Maybe we create the strange things in the silliest kind of way. Maybe we create the phenomena. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist unless we're there, but maybe we enhance it, maybe we attract it. And I do think that it all begins in here, the thought process. We talked about the hitchhiker effect. I think on Sunday we touched on it slightly. And I know Gemma, my daughter, who's doing the moderating now, she's experienced it. And everybody who's coming up there have experienced it. But I don't personally believe, and I could be wrong, that you've got something that's attaching itself to somebody or somehow invisibly accompanying somebody back to where they live. I think that it's just a thought process away. And, you know, just like people want to connect with God, and, they don't have to travel to wherever they perceive heaven is. You just think about it, just put the thoughts out there, and allegedly you can connect with God. I mean, I'm not that religious, if I'm being truthful, but no disrespect to people that are. But I think it's a thought process away. And if you start thinking about it, just like we said on Sunday, some people have got in touch with me. They've had strange experiences, and years and years ago, and then decided to write to me and talk to me. And in some instances, they've said they almost feel like they've woke it up by talking about it. And in some instances, people have said, "I'd rather we didn't talk about it now. I don't use it, please." And obviously, I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't do it. If one little hint of it made you feel uncomfortable, then I wouldn't do it. Likewise, the time and the effort that I do to put on these short YouTube films, if anybody came forward and said, could you remove it or could you change something in it, I would do that. If it were making somebody feel uncomfortable, for the most part, I would anyway. Let's have a look here. Paul Sinclair, true. Have you heard the theory of Patrick Jackson? Is this the spheres? He has a theory about all aspects of the phenomena are linked. His theory is fascinating, if a bit way out. Do you know, I don't know enough about it, Rhiannon, but there's a lot of people mentioning this, and maybe it's somebody I should reach out to. My biggest problem is time, and I sound like I'm bleating on because I say it every week, but to even get the book and read it, I have to sit down for a few hours and do that. And we've got 4 grandkids, 2 relatives who we're looking after, and we're not carers, but there's only us doing it. That's why I'm up at stupid o'clock at like 4 or 5 o'clock. I know you didn't ask for that, Rhiannon. I'm just saying it's time. So I don't know an awful lot about this man, but something tells me it's something to do with spheres as well. So maybe it's somebody we should reach out to. And Don Lodge, who runs the truthproof.uk website for me, he puts all reports on and everything. He rang me today, and I'll throw this out to team or anybody that's close to us who might be interested. He said, how about doing a diary? So that's why I'm saying you'd have to be coming up there with us and things, and get people to write in or put the information to Don to his email, and every time something happens, or even if nothing happens, we're documenting on a weekly basis what is the strangeness that's occurring up there, or what isn't the strangeness that's occurring up there. So that's something I'll be throwing out. And I don't see Jack in here tonight, but Jack would probably like that. I found myself stuttering then, didn't I? Sound like Elmer Fudd. All right, let's have a look. Right, we've just done that one, haven't we? Come on, get your head a shake, Paul. Right, let's have a look. Martin Tierney. Paul, how big was the light? About as big as a tennis ball, Martin. And we're talking about what Linny saw. About as big as a tennis ball, or so he said. You know, and I filmed. This is the frustrating thing, Martin. We'd got a one of the fixed cameras was on us, and we were hoping it had just caught it, but it hadn't. Yeah, the field of vision or its capture just wasn't wide enough. We'd have had to have been set back. So that's frustrating, because afterwards I filmed Ian talking about it and his reaction. I wandered off into darkness and talked about it. And, you know, how far do you go? Do you make a little YouTube film about it? Once again, he's talking about something. He's got not an ounce of proof about what he's talking about. Well, that's all we can do. That's hence the title, or the subtitle of that book, The Truth That Leaves No Proof. We'll just do that. Anybody who's interested in the Truth Proof books, truthproof.uk, you can get them, and you can either purchase them there, or you can go to eBay. I prefer eBay, to be honest with you, because it's just so easy for postage and everything. But don't let the website put you off. They're all similar price. So, and you can also get the Wolflands DVD, although we haven't got many left. And I know Les has had some done, and I messaged Les today to find out. I'm going to have to meet him, and we're going to have to get these DVDs so that I've got enough to supply people if you want to buy a DVD. Otherwise, I'll take them off for a week or so. But no worries. Let's have a look. How big was the light? Yeah, tennis ball size. And let's have a look. So what we got here, 277 people in. I expected about 30 or 40 people sat in here, guys. So really surprised me this, because it was pretty random. Mark Doty's in. There's an interesting guy. Zeno or Zen, good to see you, mate. And Sarah Hetty, let's have a look. Dog behaviourist Nick. Oh, that's interesting. Let's have a look. Paul, what are your thoughts on the very well-known Bob Lazar's findings regarding UFOs? Well, we just touched on Bob Lazar, and probably one of the only books I've read that travels in dreamland. And I think a lot of what Bob Lazar was saying back in the day, you'll know more about this bit sounds of it than me, people didn't believe. People thought it was just outrageous. But there's a lot of what he spoke about now that's found to be fact, found to be truthful. Likewise, I mean, and I've never met David Icke, but a lot of people scoffed at what David Icke said years and years ago and thought it were a big joke what he were talking about. But look now. Not everybody's laughing. There's a lot of stuff that man said that's now coming to fruition. So that's fascinating in itself. Sorry, I didn't Dale, not to dwell on Bob Lazar, but I don't know much more about him than you do. Probably you probably know more. Let's have a look. Paul, a talk by you has just gone on Oman TV. Okay, I've not seen it, but I don't know. I don't know what it will be. I've done loads and loads. I've done some for Ancient Aliens as well, some for Blaze TV. I've turned a couple of documentaries down this year and a trip to America. I can't get there anyway. It's not feasible with looking after these relatives. But no, I don't know what it would be then. So just on what is it? I'm going to write that down. Is this on internet, Chris? Just message it me later and just say if it is. So I'll have a look at that. I don't know what it'll be. Thank you. Paul, have you seen the very convincing UFO footage shot over Turkey? Yeah, I did. Oh, no, a few months. For a few months in 2007. Yeah, I thought you were going to say a few months ago. Yeah, it were interesting, wasn't it? We're on about that sort of arc-shaped thing with the, I don't know, except to have a centerpiece. Yeah, I found it fascinating. Yeah, I really did. And there were people saying that they could see figures inside it. Whether they could or not, I don't know. I think it's possible to over-pixelate anything and see faces in it. But I'm not taking anything away from the footage, though, because it did look impressive. Yes, fascinating. Let's just go back a bit. Let's have a look. I'll just put this little heater on. Right. What's your thoughts on old earthworks like mines, large civil engineering projects causing the phenomena to... Do you know, Stan, I've not really thought about it much, but when you think about... It'll make sense in a moment. When you think about people who buy an old house, let's say a couple's been in it 30, 40, 50 years, and sadly they pass away, and people say, oh, that property's haunted or whatever, and then a new couple, a young couple move in and they start knocking walls out and turning it into their home. Those kind of disturbances seem to upset, allegedly, the resident ghost stroke spirits are there. So all earthworks and engineering jobs disturbing the land, who's to say that that doesn't stir up the phenomena? Yeah, I think you make a good point, Stan. And I'm sure that there are places all around the UK and around the world where people would sort of say, yeah, that strange things happened when we worked on that job. How do we know, though, if that land weren't active prior to that? You know, it's difficult, isn't it? I did a little story. I haven't got it in front of me, of the guy on the Wolds with his partner, and they were metal detecting. And he found a silver coin, I think it was denarius, or I probably pronounced that wrong, but I think that's what it was. But as he'd found the coin, and that's the thing, the coin appeared. He'd scooped a bit of earth up and like it was pressed in. It didn't even look like it had been in the earth. But he suddenly got a feeling of he shouldn't be there. He didn't belong there. And then said he saw pass him very fast, almost like sand, like a sandstorm, but in the shape of a person. And yeah, I find things like that fascinating, as though some things disturb the earth, some things you shouldn't be there. I've been trying to find out where the location is. You know, I really, really want to go to the exact location, because he's had another experience when he's gone back there again. And I think I'll be able to find out as well, if I'm being truthful, because it's a small world. He's a friend of my son-in-law. But there you go. And there Paul goes again, rambling on. I'm off in all sorts of directions, aren't I? Need to give me head a shake. Let's have a look. Perhaps we could say other, as in they are not extra, unknown others. I agree. But from here, whether it's this dimension or another, I would agree. We simply don't know, do we? And it's a fact that the people that say they do invariably don't. And otherwise, you wouldn't be sat here listening to me rabbiting on or rattling on, throwing out my thoughts, because you get a gist of my thoughts. I'm here investing time in this with you guys because I'm just the same as you. I'm looking for answers. If you know, and that's all we're all doing. And if somebody out there actually did have the sort of grip on this and the truth of this, then nobody would be sat listening to me, and nobody would be buying these books, and nobody would be doing anything, because we would all go to this Godhead, whoever he or she may be, because they would have the knowledge. And I think we all probably know a little bit, but it's all those other pieces. Hence, we were talking about earlier at the beginning of this, pigeonholing the phenomena. We need to stop doing that and establish and accept the fact that it's multi-phenomena research that we need to be doing, because everything is linked in some. It's inexplicable, I get that, but it's linked. And you can see it's difficult even finding the threads of the sameness. Can you say sameness? I just did. It's even difficult finding the threads of the same, but they're there. They're there. And probably one of the easiest analogies would be the alien abduction scenario, and the not hundreds, but thousands of people that claim to have been in the situation where these beings have immobilized them, and they're stood over them, and they're speaking to them in their mind. They can hear it inside their mind, external to their hearing, obviously. Liken that to the spiritual, the clairaudience, the spiritualist, the medium, who claims that he or she is hearing spirit talking. She can hear it in here. That is the same exotic science, in my opinion. If we can call it exotic science, call it what you want, but that is the same phenomena. Might not be the same beings, the same intelligences, or it might be. You know, you might decide you like spiritualism, and they think, right, well, we'll work with that. We for what we want from this individual. We want this emotional output from this individual. We want to see how they react to this. We could be just one big experiment. That's long-term experiment, should we say? Who can say? So then you get that aspect of it. Then you get, we'll stay with this one because I know I've done it before, but you get the the cryptid phenomena, and the hunter, we'll say in Alaska or some deep forest in America, who believes in none of this. It's all a load of rubbish. He's hunted all his life and never seen a thing. And he's there with his gun, and something steps out on the path that he can only describe as a monster. 7 to 9 foot tall, covered in fur, just shatters all his, what a load of rubbish, instantly. Raises the gun, and a voice speaks to him inside his head, warns him. I don't know how it does it. I don't know how the alien does it. We use that term lightly. I don't know how the medium gets that information, but it's the same exotic science. It's the same thread running through it all. And the light form phenomena, the ILFs, the intelligent light forms, it shows up in all aspects of the unexplained. Let's face it, it does. You know, if you're looking for UFOs, whatever shape or whatever you want to do, where if you're looking for these objects, invariably you're going to encounter spheres of light. Whether there's something structured inside the spheres of light, I don't know. In all instances, I know people claim to have seen things in them, so I'm not going to say they're not. And it's just intelligent light, hence the name of my website, ILF UFO, Intelligent Light Forms. Whether it's just light, but what I'm getting at is the Bigfoot in the forest, and the people who see this, and then they say the odd thing as well. We saw spheres of light just before, or we saw spheres of light just after, or in the days before. There's a connection of the same, you know. So we, you know, spirit. People think it's ghost. People think ghosts. We've seen spirit lights. Whether you want to, it's your interpretation and your take, given your particular interest in whatever genre you invest time in within unexplained phenomena. Let's face it, that's the way it runs. That's how I see it anyway. And I don't know. Let's have a look. What did you ask? And you only asked it, whether it's one dimension or another. And look what I've done. I've just shot off again, haven't I? Here we go. Let's have a look. AI is the death of believable alien footage now. Absolutely. Actually quite sad. Misinformation or bored people. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think, Mark, that, you know, and I'm not a big advocate of AI. Sometimes I will, you know, if I want a picture of a conical shaped UFO, because I'm retelling a story, I would ask I would ask it, and I don't subscribe as in pay for any programs at all, but I would ask it if it could produce me something similar, or I'd do a sketch. I did some sketches for one today, because I think, and we're only a small YouTube channel, aren't we? We're only a small, everything that we're doing, it's even group of people that go up there. We fund all this ourselves, and it's not always easy. But where am I going with this? I think that the human element, the actual input, as in the human touch, should we say, is far more important than the AI. And I know what you're saying, that it's death of footage now, death of cryptid, or if you want to try and get full footage or evidence of Bigfoot, people will always say it's been, not always, but invariably say it's been faked. But it's not going to stop you, though, is it, Mark? It's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop you guys in chat. We'll still run with it, won't we? Because that's the way of things. Okay. Bored people. Yeah, let's have a look. Right. Never seen out. Anything academia hasn't seen or believed. Yeah, spot on. You're absolutely spot on. Who agrees with that? And that's the reason we can't move forward, because everything's denied out of existence. And then you've got the researchers, the alleged researchers, big names in subject, who talk in scientific terms. They talk like scientists. And when they're dishing out this spiel to the general populace, and it's not because the general populace is dumb, because they're not, but if they've never invested time looking into the scientific terminology and the physics and what is possible and what is not possible within the laws of science, they're going to believe this researcher. But true scientists and academics can see through that talk. That's why they will not jump in with us and invest time with us, because you've got researchers who want to be on some kind of pedestal, as though they want letters after the name, and they want to be known as some kind of scientific knowledge within the subject of unexplained phenomena. I'm sorry, but you're not. You know no more than I know or anybody else in chat, I don't think. And that's not a dig at anybody, but that's just the truth of it. Likewise, these are only my take on things, or this is only my take on things. Don't mean I'm right. But then we jump back to science and academia, and you're spot on. If they've not seen it, it doesn't exist. If somebody's talking about it as in a witness and talking about the maneuverability of something, or the way something appeared or disappeared, and it defies the laws of physics and defies everything that they believe is possible, then it doesn't exist. So likewise, science has its failings, in my opinion, because it's supposed to be open and searching for answers. And if you've got enough people en masse, and that's what we've got, people en masse from every walk of society, every place in the world, every level of intelligence, are coming forward and saying they've seen and experienced something of a highly unusual nature, then that by virtue of those facts, then it has to be taken serious. But instead it gets denied out of existence. Right. Setting me off on all sorts of roads here, guys. 14. In relation to last night's encounter, it's unusual for something to rattle Linny. Aura of calmness, Paul. It illustrates again the location can have an effect, or even the most stoic amongst us. Absolutely. I'd say this live stream tonight, guys. So if Linny's in and I haven't got to see him come in, I've not told anybody. I messaged Gemma and said, I think I'm going to do a live stream just before I did it. And that were it. But I've no fear in saying Linny said he was frightened. It frightened him, because that don't make Linny a weak man. To me, that shows strength and character to admit that is how it made you feel. And I can watch a film, me, and start crying. I've no shame in things touch you, don't they? If you're real, you don't want to pretend you're someone else. So yeah, it did affect him. Likewise, Mark, who was there last night, we touched on what Mark saw. Mark's a similar frame, similar sized man to Ian. Not that that's another thing. Let's just do that one before we jump to Mark. Nobody's going to remind me about Mark. It'll fly out my head. But I don't think the phenomena, let's just say the phenomena, whatever it is, looks upon the size of a person. I don't think it even considers the physical presence of anything. because it can have that effect, as it did with Linny, on anything and anyone it chooses. I think probably it's the size of a person's aura and persona and the interest, the phenomena, more than the actual physicality of a person. Am I making sense? Maybe not. Maybe it'll have struck a chord with some people. Right. So let's have a look here. Let's just go down here. Munning the Raven E5. Let's have a look. It's not in caps, so let's do Red Fred. Have there been any unexplained paranormal experiences that, in your opinion, are demonic or really negative? Yeah, many. Yeah, absolutely, Fred, to be honest with you. Whether they're demonic or not, I don't know. I mean, I haven't got a copy of it, but Night People. That's the book, as you guys, most of you will know, about my own experiences. Incidentally, Gemma, my daughter, who's doing moderating now with 4 girls, I've written about my experience from childhood. I wouldn't say to present day, but as far as I could up until writing it. And some experiences that the girls had and the mum, my wife. There's none in of Gemma. Gemma didn't have unexplained phenomena experiences. The only time to my knowledge, she might have had a few over years since she's left home and that, but to my knowledge, probably the most profound unexplained phenomena experience Gemma had were after she'd seen that white square at Bempton on the hill and what happened at home afterwards. But let me just keep my thread here. Demonic or negative? In Night People, Fred, I actually say, that I don't even know. You know, some people would call these things aliens, and we'll use that loosely. Aliens or demons, I don't know what they were. I have no idea what they were. All I know is, as a little boy, they frightened me to death. They were terrifying. And there's nothing ever come close to being as frightening as what I saw and experienced as a child. But by the same token, I know that other people have had absolutely amazing, euphoric, almost angelic experiences with these other worldly entities. So are we dealing with the same thing? And are they just wanting different things from different individuals? There's that part of me who thinks that's it, you know. There is a big part of me that thinks that when it comes to this kind of interaction with the human, that we've probably got the same intelligences, if that's what we want to call them, with the same entities employing good things and bad things for different reasons. But I guess, I mean, when am I going to find out? You know, not at this side of life, I don't think. You know, so if let's assume there is something at the other side of this life, and I think there is. You know, I don't know what you guys think, and that's not just wishful thinking because I'm wrong side of it. I just think there is. You know, you hear people, we're going off on one a little bit here, but you hear people saying they died on the operating table. God forbid that they came back. But when they came back, people said, what would it like? Well, first of all, you know, one part that you said it was just blackness. Well, that implies that there is something. That, you know, it implies there's a conscious state there to know that it was just blackness. And does it mean it would be blackness all the time? Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know that. That might be just wishful thinking on my part. But I do believe that there's something at the other side of this life. Let's put it that way. And obviously, you know, what would it have said other week or a few weeks ago? I said, life is a good opponent, but death knows no equal. And that is the truth of it. So we're all gonna find that out. I don't want to get too morbid, but we're all gonna find that out eventually, aren't we? Yeah, and that's original saying as well, by the way. You can say it, but if you hear somebody else saying it, remember it came from me. Hey, that's somebody I've not seen in for a while, and I'm going to ring you, Mick Park. Hey, Mick, it's been a while. Looking forward to getting up to Bempton this year with Nick and Rebecca. I hope so, mate. Yeah, you've been on my mind, to be honest with you. So great to see you in here, and I were gonna give you a call actually this week. So. Mick used to come on here regularly. He's just been absolutely swamped with work, I would imagine. But Nick's the guy who did the music for Wolfland. Nick and his working partner, Nick. So there were Nick, and Mick and Jessica did the vocals, and her husband worked on the music. Another Nick for Wolflands, and eternally grateful. Absolutely incredible music that lifted the film and carried it along as well. Good to see you, Mick. And it's a bit of a one-off tonight, Mick. I weren't going to do a live stream, mate, and I just find myself sat here, and I've had a few things on today, and I thought, this will just sort of detach my brain from all of the other stuff. So why not? Let's just have a look at this. Paul, what are your thoughts on Carl Jung's belief that UFOs is like a share's unconscious projection of sorts, that they are not necessarily out there, but very much here? If you, I'm with it. I don't mean I believe everything that Jung said, but there is a phenomena without us, but do we create the phenomena around us? UFOs researchers see UFOs, ghost hunters see ghosts. Is that how it works? I don't know, but I think that a lot of the connections and a lot of the way into the phenomena is through here. I really, really do. I mean, I'm not an advocate of ingesting any substances or anything, but you hear of the indigenous tribes in the deep jungles of South America and other places where they use hallucinogens and at times claim to visit otherworldly realms. But that's all I'll say on that, because once again, I ain't got enough knowledge to really throw it out there. So let's have a look. Right, Fred, do you think if we focus on paranormal things, we bring them closer to us? It's similar to what's just been asked, and allow them to manifest in our lives. Yes, I do. I really do. And I think there are times, Fred, and I don't know whether everybody agrees, I think there are times in a person's life that you're closer to the phenomena because of the thought process. And one of a quick analogy of that would be bereavement. And you think about the loved one and they're on your mind, and it's a focused thought, isn't it? And it's a deep, pure thought as well. If it's somebody you've loved, it's without reservation. It's what you'd call a pure thought. I'm trying to find the words for it. An unpure thought, where you're wishing for something for your own reasons. Oh, I wish I were a millionaire. I wish I'd win lottery. But these are thoughts that are sort of they're sort of operating and working, at the back of your mind all the time. And a lot of times, many times, people will say that they saw their deceased relative. Did we project that? Are we that powerful in our minds that we could actually project that? Are we creating the phenomena, or are we somehow connecting with the phenomena and enhancing it and pulling it through? I don't know which. I'd like to think that we're enhancing it and pulling it through rather than we're creating it, because then it implies that there's nothing there for us at the other side of this world. And I want there to be. I don't know. But it's likewise, it's the same with things to try and connect with the phenomena. Such, I don't know, tools to connect with the phenomena, if you like. One thing we'd never use is a Ouija board. But we know that when people do use these tools, they connect with the phenomena. Unfortunately, most of the time it's a negative experience. That's why we would never use them. But so I don't know. It brings it closer to us. Let's have a little look down here. Let's have a look. Zen, Dot connecting needles from haystacks. Hi, Doc. I'm fairly certain that we are not dealing with things from space. I'm absolutely certain we're not dealing with things. But no, Zen, I think we're on the same page here. I think a lot of us are, that potentially looking up there, that there has to be some form of life out there. Whether it's interested in us or not, I don't know. But then jumping back to terra firma here, or what's within our space, or able to infiltrate our space, I think it is here and can interact with us, and it doesn't have to travel the vast distances of space, which is what science has put in front of everybody that said they've seen something for decades and decades and decades, and literally closed us down, when in all actual fact we should have just been saying, well, they're already here. We just don't know how they're getting here. And that's probably the most perplexing and frustrating question for men of science. I should imagine it is, because it's still, no matter what people think, it's still one of the most secretive and highly regarded subjects when it comes to secrecy and what people want from the subject in the world. The technology, we all want something from this subject for different reasons. And if it's the power elite, it's usually to gain even more power. And does the phenomena, I don't know this, and there may be people within the power elite that just know the mechanics of it and know what's happening, but does the phenomena even consider them any more important than they did consider you? Because there's people coming out all the time with information, and they become of interest to the power elites of the world. So if they had the knowledge, they wouldn't be interested in the little man that was trying to gain knowledge. Why would they be interested in a little team of researchers at Bempton, for instance, if that's what were happening, or somewhere else in the world, or on a much bigger scale, Skinwalker Ranch? Why would vast amounts of money be ploughed into that by, allegedly in the past, other agencies, if there was nothing to the subject? I don't know. So ancient consciousness been here from the start. Our Earth is old, yes, and so am I. Let's have a look. Yeah, we've got some more questions for me. We're getting a bit questionless. Is there even a word, questionless? Let's have a look. Nigel Logan. Do you think some of the whistleblowers are working for our government? Yeah, to muddy the waters even, to get us ready for the full contract. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we just I don't know, I won't say every 10 years, but every so often, there's no set perimeters of time, but we get people coming out. I mean, we were going to get all these revelations and we were going to get all this truth. To me, I don't think we're any closer to it, are we, Nigel? I really don't. I mean, and this while this guy's on, while his name's on, and not mind me saying, he's seen the most incredible UFO. And I've met Nigel quite a few times. I've been to the area where he saw this object, and Nigel's on a cliff top. You don't mind me saying this, Nigel, I'm sure you don't. Probably about 30 foot from the sand. So nothing like Bempton and Flamborough, sort of rough, sort of earth cliffs, clay. And he's looking over on one morning, sat having his break with his colleague. Let's say the tide's out, I don't know, half out, I don't know, but there's a strip of sand between the cliff and the water, and a triangle flies up the beach, lower than the cliffs. What an incredible sighting. I'm so grateful for you, Nigel, for sharing that sighting with me. I really am. It's quite something. And what makes Nigel's sighting even more interesting, obviously he's got a witness to this, and I've spoken to the witness, but what makes it even more interesting is that I think I might have got this wrong, Nigel, because it's a few years since now, but there's a dog walker further down the cliff walking up, and you're alerting the dog walker to this object that's slowly flying along the beach. And he either looks over and sees it, or he looks over, and just when he looks over, it blinks out of existence. It's not there. That's incredible. Absolutely one of the best sightings I've because he's so accurate with what he's seen. When you don't have to scratch your head and think when you've actually seen the real deal. You don't have to think about it and think, oh, it might have been that big, or it might have been that color. If you've seen it, you usually know what you've seen. And I can't remember year, Nigel, but I know there were catastrophic power failure either days before or days after you saw that object. And what's interesting is when we came and spoke to you and filmed you talking about that object, I could see the Hornsey Wind Farm in the distance. And it was the Hornsey Wind Farm that was blamed for the catastrophic power failure. Can you remember? I'm sure you can. So that was interesting in itself. So anyway, there we go. So my head's just, as fast as I'm getting information's falling out at the back of it because I just can't hold it all in. Let's have a look here, Fred. You got some questions in tonight, Fred. Do you think the significant cliff erosion between Brid and Filey could be due to... no, I don't, mate, to be honest. I think it's due to sea. But, Bridling, Bempton Cliffs and Speeton and Buckton, for the most part, I mean, you do get rock falls, but they've been like that for hundreds and hundreds of years. That, you know, obviously there will have been far more cliff out at sea originally, but funnily enough, we were only on about this the other day when I were a little boy, and we'd go on holiday to, you know, to Bridlington and Flamborough, and you'd walk along the cliff tops. You could see the staple. It's an outcrop of rock that looks like a staple, sticks out to sea. So that's not moved in 50 odd years. Do you know what I mean? I know 50 odd years in the grand scheme of evolution is just, it's not even a grain of sand. But what I'm saying is I don't think so, really, to be honest. I think it's just natural erosion. But thanks for that question. Chris Mack, let's have a look here. Paul was in Bridge Sunday afternoon with Sarah, took her to Danes Dyke, drove in car park. She wouldn't get out of van, probably because telling her about Michael's experience. Yep. And we're going to meet this guy hopefully, Michael, on Friday. And he's had a strange experience in Danes Dyke. And we've already had Michael on talking about it, and we'll see if we can get him on to add a little bit more. I've been there this what time did I go? About 11 till about 2. I went in today just to finish a short off for you guys, which I've been working on it, to be honest with you, and that's why I've ended up coming on here, because we had to do a bit of work for somebody else. So yeah, it's a strange experience and a frightening one. And let's just get one thing correct here. Danes Dyke is a beauty spot, and during the daytime it gets, and in the summer months, hundreds and hundreds of people a day, loads and loads of people passing through, and it's a beautiful place, but it has its moments where strange things happen. Let's put it that way. Likewise, I wouldn't dissuade anybody from going to these locations. I don't think they're dangerous. I've not heard of anybody getting injured. You go to the cliff tops of Bempton. It's a bird reserve in many places around there, you know, and hundreds, if not thousands, of people pass through it. And for the most part, everybody has a fabulous experience. But there's nobody there on an evening on those cliff tops. You know, and you're not illegally trespassing on the cliff tops. There's public rights of way, but there's nobody there, and it just takes on a different persona. And we're not treading new ground here. We're not reinventing unexplained phenomena, or a phenomena that we've suddenly decided resides in that area. You just have to speak to fishermen who've fished those cliff tops for not just 10 and 20 years, in some instances 50 years, and they'll tell you about the spheres of light. They'll tell you about the strange disjointed voices and the shadows of men that aren't men walking about, you know. And nobody's seeing this every night, nobody's seeing this every day, nobody's seeing this. Imagine if you're a fisherman and you've been up, you only fish when tides are correct, you know, when it's favorable for you. I'm talking as though I'm a fisherman, and I'm not, so Chris Mack will be laughing because he is. But what I'm saying is, let's assume that you go to those cliff tops in the fishing season, because you can't go when the birds are nesting, so you've only got a small window, say 5 months or whatever, and you go twice a week for 5 months, or once a week for 5 months, and in that year you see one thing. Half the time you're never going to talk about it. There's a lot of people sat in silence, and the fishermen that I know tell me this, because they talk to all these fishermen. And like I said other night on Sunday live stream, close-knit communities, a bit like mining communities. They're pretty secular. So, but they know about these things. We've not invented the phenomena up there. They've known all along that the strange things happen up there. And then you jump further up the coast, go towards Scalby Mills, where we talked about the Gaz and his strange experience earlier, and then into the Forge Valley. And folklore tells you it's there. Go back hundreds of years into the annals of folklore, you know, oral testimony from people. Doesn't make it any less true. We know things get sort of distorted and added on to over years. Chinese whispers, we know that can happen. Nobody's saying it doesn't. But there's a grain of truth in what they're saying. And what's interesting is the things of folklore are still being reported today. So just different names for them. You will-o'-the-wisp, the Barghest, this huge creature that people assume is a bear with flaming red eyes, or a huge hound with flaming red eyes. Or so back in, I don't know, the 1700s, would they have said flaming red eyes? Would we say self-illuminating bioluminescent eyes today? You know, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? We're dealing with the same phenomena. Once again, I'm off on one. Here I go. From what I'm finding, most science has been redacted to 3 dimensions, and based on pseudo-science, true teachings are hidden but leaking out. The fact death isn't a thing is one of the oldest. I've said this to you before, Zen. We need you on here to teach us. You've got great knowledge, or you've got a lot of knowledge that we don't have, and I'd love to speak to you. Likewise, and because I haven't advertised this, so I don't know if he's in, but I'm going to do a few interviews with Rick Allen, and you all know Rick, or a lot of you will know Rick from doing the shows on the werewolf stroke dogman and things, and Rick's got some very strong, well-researched opinions and views on what's presenting and what this subject is. So I'm going to do a few pre-records with Rick. I did say that other week, and I said that I'd be in touch with him, so I'll have to make the effort to get that sorted. Let's have a look. Randy Dandy John. Oh, Zenoscape. Magenta Block. Blue Shift Sins. Good, we've done that. Alison's in. Good to see you, Alison. Hope you're not working too hard. Let's have a look. Matthew Cook. Tony Dixon, good to see you, Tony. Jojo, there's going to be names I've missed here, people, because we've got over 250 people. And I really did think that we'd have about 30 people that are serious because, as I say, we were just a last-minute thing. So appreciate support. Let's have a look. Evening, Paul. Are there any strange stories or happenings in around the whole of Orkham? There are, yeah. And it's the similar type of phenomena, and all around that with the light form phenomena. I think that's par for the course throughout the United Kingdom. I mean, the spheres of light. But yeah, there are things reported up and around there, as Golfland, and around that location as well. And what can I say? If that location, if it weren't so far away, as in, we know it's not end of Earth, is it? But if you were going to go up there for 3 or 4 hours, then think, I've got to drive back, and you were going to do that 3 or 4 days a week, but that would be a place that I'd spend some time. Likewise, Golfland and all those places. I were in, like, Saturday, Chris Wright rang me to see if I wanted to go up into Broxer, and I just couldn't. I couldn't make it. But I love North Yorkshire. If I got the chance, to be quite honest with you, I'd move there. I'd still end up travelling to Bempton and what have you, but if I got the chance, I would move up to North Yorkshire. Not going to get a chance, though. Let's have a look. Peter McHugh books are great. Moondog. Yeah, I've never read them, Moondog, but I've no problem on Truth Proof channel saying Peter McHugh books are great, because I believe that they are good books. There's some great books out there. I mean, Dr. Anona Blackwell, who we had on, and From Medic to Mystic. I haven't got the book to hand. Well, I really recommend the book. Great book, and I hardly do any reading. And good book. There's a few of Philip Mantle's that I've enjoyed, So and Kinsella twins, Ronnie and Philip Kinsella. Loads of people. So it's hard to say someone's name, and then other people maybe think you're missing them out for a reason. I'm not. There's loads of great books out there. Oh, and this fella, I think his books are all right. Do you know something? I've never read one of them. And I'm not joking. That's not even a joke. I've never, ever read one of them. And I ought to do, really, didn't I? Just out of interest. Because I know I wrote them, but I can't remember half of what I wrote. I'll be honest with you. And that's the truth. Right. So have we done this one? Paul, your readiness and openness to the unknown is courageous and gives this subject authenticity and allows others to contribute. Thank you, Victoria, in a safe place without judgment. Thank you for your enthusiasm. We've got to be enthusiastic, can't we, Victoria? I like the bike as well. That's a good bike. What is that? That looks like a BSA. I reckon I could be wrong, or it might be an AJS. I like old British motorbikes, and I can't see what it is, but I know it's a side. I think it's a side valve. Who likes old British bikes? Most people won't even remember. I used to have an M21, which were a 500 single-cylinder BSA, and an M21 was 600, and then I had a 500, which were an M20. Then I had a Tiger 100, and these bikes were before my time. I was born in 1962. The Tiger 100 I had were 1969. Its registration were TUE 35G, and it was brilliant. I loved it at 500. I thought about Fonz. Yeah. Oh, it was brilliant. I loved it. Yeah. I need to shut up, don't I? Let's have a go. It'll be those satanic cults that are summoning, evoking all these dogman creatures. I bet. I wouldn't know, Simon. Because I think what people are calling the werewolf or the dogmen, I think we're dealing with the same thing. And I know there's people who are going to shoot me down and say, "Oh no, they're different," and there's different variants, and maybe there is. But what I'm meaning is, let's jump back to folklore and the Barghest, or in other terminology, the Bearghest, and the descriptions of it: a huge bear-like creature, a huge black dog. Then we don't forget that their terminology and their visual on these things and their take on what we were dealing with would have been shaped by what they knew at the time. And I don't think we've advanced that much, but we've got a different idea of what things are. And Hollywood and horror films are somehow, do you think, here's one then, do you think the phenomena and do you think the shape of the cryptid is changing due to the input of big budget films and phenomena showing us things? And do you think that people are saying, "Oh, it just looked like one of those things from Underworld"? I don't know. Or are they shaped on people's own experiences? Probably the latter. What I've just said is more to the point. These things are created via other people's experiences and descriptions. Excuse me. Mark Buck, Matthew Cook, Chrissy. Let's have a look. Mark Buck, got Julie Parker. I'm just sorry for rambling here. Dub Snapper. I'm over 50 years old, following the UFO topic, read all the good books by respected authors. All the new stuff being introduced into the arena, like Psychonics, calling UFOs, is a distraction at best. Maybe. But maybe it's just a rebranding of the old stuff. You know, when you look at Jacques Vallée and Keel, and their thinking, their forward thinking is where a lot of people are at today. They were way ahead of their time. And I don't know, maybe that these are just new words. We're dressing things up with new words, just kind of revamping them, reinventing the same thing, just to ring it out and get a little bit more out of it. So I'm part with you with that, Dub. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate that. Thanks anybody that's contributed like that to me tonight. You don't have to though, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. Margaret Webster, Ben, Ian Linney. There you are. I didn't have time. Just seen you are on. I weren't going to be on, Ian. I weren't going to be on. But if you look back, I've been on about your sighting. And I said how it rattled you, which it did. And all in a good way. It didn't rattle you in a good way, but all in a good way and respectful. So, yeah, it's good to see you there, mate. Chris Mack, let's have a look. Paul, if you want me to pick up the Wolflands DVD, just give us a shout. I think he's close. And brilliant, Chris. That would be good. Yeah, I will. I messaged him this morning and I haven't had a reply so far, but that don't matter. But I'll message him again. That would be great, that, mate. I'd really appreciate that. Yep, thank you. That's good. Yeah, I weren't going to do a live stream, Ian, and 15 minutes before I rang Gemma up and asked if she'd be able to do moderating, and it looks like Alison's found us as well, which is brilliant. Let's have a look. Are any of your books on audiobook? No, but they should be, shouldn't they? That's something that I really need to get organised and get on with. I mean, I've not got them on Amazon now, apart from on Kindle, and they used to be for sale on Amazon. So there's a platform where they're not sort of available as in the paperback versions. I've got to be careful because people tell me I shouldn't be talking about my books on my own podcast. It is crazy, isn't it? He's on there, he's trying to sell books. Well, yeah, what do you want me to do? Let's have a look. We'll just go down a bit. We're only going to do an hour, guys. Everybody's saying hello to Linny. Just give me a question, Linny. You mind saying hello to people? Let's have a look. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Very much appreciated. And thank you, Alison. You know, because as I say, I didn't really announce it. I'd only spoke to Gemma just because I didn't think it'd be fair to. Let's have a look here. Arthur Shuttlewood's books about UFOs in Warminster. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. But I've spoke to John Hanson quite a bit about Warminster, and it's fascinating, isn't it? And the Warminster thing. I'll tell you what's interesting. and it's not a point scoring thing here, but you know the Warminster thing, and you've obviously read the book, so you'll remember the dates. But before the Warminster thing, there was the thing in the sky at Filey, the Filey thing that made the newspapers, which were interesting only a few months before. It weren't actually in the sky at Filey, it was in the sky over Flamborough Coast Guard Station. But at times it's sent to move towards Filey and then come back. I can't remember year. So it's obviously it's the same year as the Warminster thing, which tells me I think it was 1967. And I think we're looking at June, but you might correct me there. But basically, it's one of the longest ever recorded UFO sightings that I've ever heard. It was over 5.5 hours over. And it was seen from about 5:30 in the morning by the Flamborough Coast Guard Station. I think there were a few people in the station at the time. So that's a proper observational lookout post. It was above the Coast Guard Station. They saw it long enough to contact the local newspaper, the Bridlington Free Press, and reporters came with binoculars and they were looking at it as well. Over 5.5 hours. And all the newspapers reported it, as in the Bridlington Free Press, the Filey Mercury, and the Scarborough Evening News. So they all had a slightly different headline for it. But the Filey Mercury, I think it was Mercury, dubbed it. That's interesting. It dubbed it, pardon the pun, dub. The thing in the sky at Filey, and then just after that you'd got the Warminster thing as well, which were UFO related. So I found them two coincidences quite interesting. So basically this object, when they looked at it through binoculars, looked like a triangle with I think it looked like a white triangle with a black line down its side, and then it changed shape into a bullet or a bullet shaped object. What happened there? Did you see my screen go funny? Then it went towards Filey, literally for half an hour, and then it came back. So people might think after listening to this that, oh, it's something tethered. Flamborough Coast Guard Station to Filey, Bempton to Filey is 6 miles. It was over Flamborough Coast Guard Station for about 4 hours. No tether, nothing. It's high in the sky. So it's an interesting sighting. I know that that's not what you asked for about Warminster, but it just jumped into my mind, this over 5.5 hour sighting at over the Flamborough Coast Guard Station, which is an incredible sighting. And there was, I believe there's something else in conjunction with that. Yeah. So we got this sighting at Flamborough, and I don't know whether it was the week before or the week after, the craters appeared. So there was the Flamborough crater on the cliff tops, just literally probably 400 or 500 yards from the Coast Guard Station. A crater appeared on the cliff tops, on the cliff tops at Rudd's Farm in Flamborough. And I better not say his name. I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you, because the newspaper said it, but they did in the day. But this young farmer, when we're going back to the 1960s, 50 odd years ago, went to cut hay on his father's land. When he came back, it already passed and it weren't there. When he came back, there's a crater, huge crater, not very deep, but a big crater. They didn't know what had disturbed it, but they alerted authorities, and before they knew it, the bomb disposal squad arrived with metal detectors and all sorts of instruments, Geiger counters, and they concluded that these are chalk cliffs, remember? These are rocky chalk deposits that lightning had hit a gas deposit on the cliff tops and caused the crater. Sometimes, the explanations given are more ridiculous. No UFOs were seen, let's put it that way, but that's interesting that that's what they said. Then, miraculously, throughout the United Kingdom and into the Highlands of Scotland, all within that month and a few weeks extended, and a few weeks before, craters were found all over the United Kingdom. And because we didn't have this incredible thing that called the internet, we'd not got this cross-pollination of knowledge. Whereas today we would I won't say we'd know instantly, but the word would spread. So obviously years and years later, and I think Flying Saucer Review were onto it within a few years, they'd latched onto it and they did a number on it, and tried to join the dots with the craters, and they were, I think, Dunbartonshire and Midlothian and all sorts of places where the craters had been appearing, some of them quite large. And not the Flamborough crater, but most of the other craters, they brought in Patrick Moore, the astronomer, and he were brought in to dismiss the notion that it could have been done, in their words, by little green men, as in aliens, which were fascinating in itself. So yes, and although there were no UFO related information to suggest that the Flamborough crater was something UFO related, we'd got either a week before or a week after, I can't remember. I think there were like 8 days between them, because I did write about it in this book. I'm not going to look because it would take me too much time, but a week before or a week after, we'd got the crater appeared, or the UFO, the 5.5 hour UFO sighting. But the other ones, the ones in different parts of the country, there were a police officer called Mike Penny, if my memory serves me right. He'd seen orange spheres of light, not over the crater, but at the same time that the craters. I can't think where it was. It was a guy called Mike Blanchard's field. Listen to me rambling on, but that he'd seen orange spheres. This police officer, and they'd also found animals, livestock, cows, that looked scorched, and said that the skin was peeling in scales. That was the wording for it, which is interesting. And when I spoke to the then, he was a young farmer back in the 1960s. I actually spoke to him when he were in his 70s, about this crater. I were also contacted then by another man who found another crater at Bempton during the same time period. And he used to work for a large earth removal company that's still in Bridlington, still in area, should we say. And I went to his home and spoke to him about it. And this man's passed away now, but I'm still not going to say who he was. And I went to his home, spoke to him about it, and he told me that he'd come across this crater and never said anything, because he thought that the guy who talked about the Flamborough one got a little bit of ridicule, and people were laughing at him. So he never said anything. And the Flamborough crater, I went and measured it. I pegged it out, put a string line across, measured the depth of it. That was huge. That was 63 foot across. It was still there, since being filled in. That's interesting in itself, isn't it? So all that from Arthur Shuttlewood's books. Hey, there you go. And I'll just I know Alison's put that on, but thank you very much. Much appreciated for joining us. And listen, people, I know most of you will have done it, but if you're new to the channel, just consider pressing the like and subscribe. It's literally in front of you somewhere, on your phone, on your laptop, on your PC, and it's free. There's no, that's all we want from it. Alison's got a time tonight. Gemma, as you guys have been absolutely amazing. And let's just have a look. Wizard in the Woods. Scientists are just tribal as any other group, just as tribal as any. Yeah. I would. Well, it were interesting, Woods, listening to Dr. Anona Blackwell talking about her spiritual experiences. And I know that she's not a scientist as such, a doctor, but still someone from a different profession, to say, me who's worked on a building site, someone a bit more esteemed, isn't it, if you're a doctor? But it was interesting listening to Anona, because she was telling me, or telling us as a collective when she was speaking, that she'd got a group of physicists, and not physicists, a group of doctors and surgeons who would regularly meet and discuss the unexplained. And she refused. I never asked her, but she wouldn't say the names of some of them because they're still working. So that's interesting, because you know, and everybody in chat knows, that there's going to be people within the scientific community, lots and lots of them, and they're probably all giving it this head scratching, thinking something's happening here. But I just daren't put my head above the parapet and say, I believe this, or I believe that as a collective, there's too many people saying these things are real. There's got to be something to it. It's easier just to say nothing, isn't it, and keep getting your paycheck at end of month or end of week. So I'm going to shut down in a minute, people. Well, in a while, because I fancy a drink of tea. And do you think there's somewhere? Do you think that somewhere there is a parallel universe? Well, maybe, Simon. I wish I could remember name of Paul, who were on about the records, and he said, I think everything, we've got all these other worlds are existing along the side of us, and we're just kind of a little tweak away from venturing into them. I don't know. Who can say? What's deja vu? You know, I had a friend years ago called Brian. Brian's passed away now, but he was straight as a die, and Brian and his family, and they went somewhere, and he'd never been before, another part of the country. He'd never even been abroad or done anything. Brian didn't drink, didn't smoke, just used to work at British Steel and come home on an evening and do whatever he did. He owned a small holding, so we were always working on that. But I remember they went away, and when they got into this town, this place where they'd gone for a few days of a break, which were rare for them, he looked at a building and described what were inside it, and went inside this place, and it were exactly as he'd described it. He claimed he'd been before in another life, yet he'd no interest in Unexplained and never spoke about anything like that prior to it. So I know that's not quite where you're at with parallel universes, but it's always surprising, isn't it? Let's have a look. What's Linny got here? Paul, I don't know what you said about last night, but it totally caught me off guard. And yes, I was shaken up and scared for a while. Yeah, and you were. And that's basically what I said. And I said, if you meet Ian in real life, and, you know, I know we've done all this, so we'll not dwell on it, but just to address your question, you're not kind of bloke that gets scared, and you're kind of bloke that faces things head on. You know, and if there's a problem, then you want to face it rather than put it to the back of your mind and have to face it some other time. Basically, you're not prone to sort of running into at night frightened, and you didn't do that last night, but you were visibly shaken, which were interesting, because we had that visitation with Chris Mack were present probably 2 or 3 months ago, just before Christmas. We had that, what we've called the visitation, and we all felt brilliant about it. Pete did, we all did. This were different, but were it the same phenomena? I tend to think that we're dealing with the same thing. I must admit, it's just putting a different face on for different reasons. I don't know why. Let's have a look. Regarding ghost sightings, what would be the holy grail of apparitions? I don't know. That's a good question, isn't it? It'd be different things for different people, obviously, wouldn't it? I don't know. You know, I really don't know. The holy grail of apparitions. Could we believe it? Could we? If you saw it, could you actually believe that that's what you were seeing? You know, it's like the more you know, the more you realize that you're being tricked and deceived. And in some instances, are we being shown things that just like we said, UFO researchers see UFOs, ghost hunters see ghosts. And if you wanted to see something so bad, would they show it you? I don't know. It almost sounds like I'm changing goalposts to suit my narrative, and there'll be people nodding their heads in chat, but I'm not. I'm not trying to. What I'm saying is I really don't know whether we're not being deceived on a monumental scale by whatever it is. And I don't just mean this unexplained as in phenomenon, one or many, or religion even. Full respect to people of religion. But what I'm saying is you can't all be right. Can you? Let's face it, you can't all be right, but you all profess to be right. You can't be. How can you be? Likewise, if I were to say this is set in stone and this is how it is, as fast as I've said it, something else 6 months down the line is going to change that opinion. We're finding that. You guys in chat now, you're finding that all of the time. Just when you think you've got an handle on what's happening, just when you think that you're going to be able to settle in your mind what you experienced, and you know, it goes off in a different direction. It's almost as though it's done that just to throw you. Expect the unexpected. That's all you can say with unexplained phenomena, let's face it. And none of your questions apply to, oh, do they really? I don't mean that wrong. And what I mean is I'm sort of off in all directions because, thank you, appreciated. Let's have a look. Well, here we go. Michelle Walters. My dad passed just before Christmas and was never a believer. Yet 2 weeks before his passing, he kept saying to me that he'd seen my mum who had passed 4 years ago. Wow. Thanks for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. And you know, I respectfully, I don't know how to address it, but obviously I would think, I can't think for you or your dad, but his mind were in a different place at that time. Maybe mine will be one day, maybe everybody's will be one day. And you're concentrating on, and your head must be in turmoil, really. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And he'd been seeing Mum who passed 4 years ago. So his mind were there, obviously, Michelle. You know, his mind were in that zone, weren't it? And who's to say that he wasn't? Yeah, thanks for sharing that with us. Let's have a look. I've passed yours, Simon, not because I want to, but yeah, I just want to look. I hope this is a good one. Evening, Paul. Are there any stories or strange happenings from? Amazing that we've done that one. I hope it's a good one. I need to give my head a shake. So I don't know whether I'm coming back to the same questions. What's the strangest paranormal thing you've experienced? Let's have a look at this one. Have we done this one, Paul? Many years ago, there's something that went by the name of the skull experiment. Yeah, which focused on paranormal. Did you know any of it, and what are your thoughts on it? I think it was very real. I think that they really, if you want to look on internet, not you, Dale, because you obviously know a little bit about it, but if you want to look on the internet and look at some of the YouTube films and try and find some of the original ones, not the ones that YouTubers have done and maybe put their own slant on it or just cherry picked. They were onto something. They connected with the unknown other without a doubt, and they were in a rich vein of the strangeness. A guy called Robin Foy, who started the skull experiments, I believe it was, and a friend of mine, Robin Foy, I think, moved to Spain. When I say I think, and he did, and a friend of mine went and lived with him for a while. And came back eventually, this man and his wife, because they thought that they were going to restart the skull experiments. I don't know how it went. I don't know how the ins and outs of it. But all I know is that this man also had a huge property, and in Scarborough. And last year, I think about early last year or the back end of the year before, we were spending time on such things similar to the skull experiments with this man, and it were interesting. That's all I'll say. And we stopped doing it because it turned a little bit dark. And we're not after the darkness within the subject, so that's why we stopped doing it. And I sound like Michael Caine. Not a lot of people know that, but there's some maybe it's a devote a little bit of structure and a little bit of thought if I were going to talk about what we saw and what we experienced, put it that way. And it weren't just me, you know, there were a group of us, including my wife. She went. So yeah, it were interesting, but it had to be stopped. Let's have a look here. We'll get to Simon. I think we've done that one. So I'm literally coming back round with these questions. Let's just do this. Then we're going to just say good. Hello, Paul. Somewhere 1976. Hello, Paul. I watched your video of the night people experience whilst with your parents. Could I ask if you shared your experience with friends? Yeah, I did. I'll tell you what's interesting, and it doesn't make what I'm saying true. But there's a guy comes on here. You'll have to look for him, and he'll come on as James Norton. I know him as Jimmy Norton. Jim's a great friend from 40 years ago. Yeah, literally. And we used to train together. That you see, and I used to train all the time, to be honest. And we used to train together, me and Jim. As I used to train with Robbie Shankland, the cryptid researcher, which is interesting in itself because there were a gap of 25 years that me and him never met. He went back to Scotland as a crofter because that's where he came from, and we met up in Doncaster, years and years ago. And then anyway, that's another story. But Jimmy, when I talked about the night people and talked about that, what you're on about now, the short film that I put on In the Snow, Jimmy said to me, said in the chat, in the comments, I remember you telling me about that when you lived at Edlington. So it didn't make my story true, but at least it tells me and anybody that might have noticed that I was speaking about that over 40 years ago, but just to friends. I spoke to Jimmy Norton about it. You know what I mean? And another fella called Adrian Kirby, who was best man at my wedding and one of my best friends through school. And all the things that I'm writing about, or I have written about in Night People, when we were schoolboys, when we were young boys, I didn't even know. But Adrian said, you told me about some of that stuff. And I didn't realise. I didn't know I'd told him about it, which is interesting. Let's put it that way. But, all right, let's just go down. I think we're about there, guys. Let's have a look. Kiel and Valet were ahead of their time. Also, Brad Steiger would fully agree. Fully agree, mate. Absolutely. So, everybody, Thudder, Blue Shift, Gemma, Alison, Lee Roscoe for moderating for us. Thank you very much. It's totally unplanned, guys. So you've just had to put up with me rattling on for a few hours, but I've really enjoyed spending some time with you. If you want to get some questions to me via email, or if you know Alison or Lee or Gemma, Gemma don't use internet much, so you probably won't get them to Gemma, but just get the questions out there. And I love it. It's just spontaneous, and it's just good to share information. And we've held, like, I don't know, between 250 and 300 people for a few hours. And if it's past a few hours on for you guys, I've enjoyed it. And on that note, I'm going to say to you guys, thank you very much. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Gemma. Thanks, Zen, Thudder, Blue Shift, Simon, everybody, Moondog. There's only names I'm looking at. Margaret Webster. And on that note, thank you very much. And we'll catch you Sunday, all being well. Take care. Bye-bye. Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella come in and said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything was deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.